Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grodner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Proposed changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program could mean less Hoosiers using the federal food relief program.
This is something where we're going to have hungry people in Indiana if it passes the way it is.
Sugar drinks and candy are already ineligible for SNAP benefits in the state. A recent rash of fatal accidents involving both commercial and private aircraft have left people wondering, is it safe to fly?
The only way that you can have absolute flight safety is to not fly. If you're going to fly, there is going to be a degree of risk because it's a human endeavor.
The Indianapolis Airport conducted its mandatory disaster training this week. And we talk with the Middle East expert about the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. We'll have these stories and more right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. With the current run of incidents involving planes, both commercial and private, flight safety has become more of a concern. Isabella Vesperini joins us from the Indianapolis International Airport to tell us more about what different agencies are doing to make flying safer.
Plane accidents often occur for a variety of reasons, including miscommunications and understaffing issues. The airport here simulated an accident to practice their roles and find ways to improve their response. Once an airport receives a call about an aircraft fire on the ground, first responders have about 3 minutes to arrive at the scene and put out the fire before it's too late.
None of us know the date or the hour that a plane crash or an incident can happen. And our main role is to make sure that we control the scene and the perimeters around the incident, and then secondarily make sure that the first responders can get to where they need to go.
The Federal Aviation Administration requires the airport go through a full-scale drill every 3 years. At this year's event, more than 30 organizations and 100 volunteers helped simulate and react to a practice incident. Other years, officials still review and update their safety plans.
The other years, we sit down in a room with all our mutual aid partners and tenants, the same people that are here today, but more of in an office environment, and go through the plan, have a scenario, and act it out.
So far this year, there have been 97 fatal plane accidents in the world, with the vast majority of those occurring in the United States. Experts say it's still safe to fly, but some holes in the system need to be filled. A recent report from the National Academies of Sciences found that one of the main areas of improvement is training pilots to be more comfortable operating modern aircraft and adapting to emergency situations.
We need people trained when the machine either quits working or isn't doing what you want it to. Do you know enough to turn it off and take over and fly it manually? That's what the flight schools should be teaching.
Between 60 and 80% of accidents are due at least in part to human error. For Indiana State University senior instructor Frank Mandarino, decreasing that human error could involve updating class lessons and focusing on certain areas, such as crew resource management skills and aeronautical decision-making skills.
We have classes on that. We have a jet simulator where they get used to flying at higher speeds and flying in a crew environment with like a pilot, co-pilot, or captain and first officer duties. And it's that kind of experience that can help make a more well-seasoned pilot when they first get to the industry.
Mandarino teaches his students that there is no one direct cause of an accident. It's usually a combination of things. It's often referred to as the Swiss cheese model.
There's a hole in the Swiss cheese, and we have an error or a threat, it gets through the hole. And if there's another hole right after that, it'll get through it as well. But if we can just, plug that hole up, we can prevent the accident.
When a crash in D.C. occurred earlier this year, Mandarino and his class discussed what could have been done to prevent damage.
We went back to the, Swiss cheese model, and, at what point could someone have done something that would have stopped the chain of events from happening?
Mandarino thinks studying past incidents is one of the best ways to improve regulations and make flying safer.
We have this little saying that the regulations are written in blood, and I would go further and say that aircraft systems are also, they're designed in blood. There were accidents that happened that caused us to go ahead and make more regulations and try to design these systems on the airplane so they alert the pilots to, impending danger and things of that sort.
For an air traffic controller, preventing a plane accident consists of focusing primarily on communication and coordination.
A lot of it comes down to communication and just situational awareness, which is constant scanning of, if you're in the tower, it's scanning of the runway and the taxiways. If you're in the center or TRACON, it's constantly scanning the radar scope.
In her classes to become an air traffic controller, Hansen had to practice responding to different levels of emergencies through simulators.
There's one where there's smoke in the cockpit, and you have to deal with calling closing that runway, calling the airport fire department, and reworking the entire pattern to deal with that emergency.
While more can always be done to make flying safer, McCarthy thinks achieving perfect safety is an unreachable goal.
The only way that you can have absolute flight safety is to not fly. If you're going to fly, there is going to be a degree of risk because it's a human endeavor. And humans tend to make mistakes, either in the design or the operation or in the system.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
It's been 1 week since Israel launched a missile attack on Iran in an attempt to stop it from gaining a nuclear weapon. Now, 2 days later, Iran responded with attacks on Israel, and the two have traded missile barrages since. Now, the U.S. is weighing whether or not to join the fight, saying all options are on the table. For more on the conflict and its impact on the Middle East, we're joined by Faisal Istrabadi, a former ambassador of Iraq and founding director of IU Center for the Study of the Middle East. Welcome to the show.
It's my
Thanks
pleasure.
for being
Thank
here.
you.
So the White House keeps talking about negotiating peace while threatening war. Can you have both of those? What's the message they're trying to send to Iran?
Yes, of course, you can have both. The problem is that from the Iranian perspective, when Israel launched these attacks, it was more or less 2 or 3 days away from negotiating with the United States, which had been ongoing. It was supposed to be the 6th session of those negotiations. So it begins to look like the negotiations and even scheduling negotiating sessions is just a cover for military action. That changes the dynamic away from a negotiated solution, it would seem to me.
So let's say if the U.S. becomes directly involved militarily in the conflict, how would Iran respond?
Well, we're probably, in the case that the Iranian regime decided that game was over, this was it. It has a number of options. It could, for instance, close the Straits of Hormuz, through which 20% or so of the world's oil flows. It could also effectively close the routes through the Red Sea. That could have a disastrous impact on world oil prices and on Western and the international economy. And it could also lash out at its neighbors, perhaps targeting their energy infrastructure as well. So if the U.S. gives the regime no options, then it's sort of non-nuclear, nuclear option is to attempt to destroy the economy of the Western world and of regional states.
So what happens in Iran, let's say, if the Khamenei government fails?
Well, there are a number of different things that could happen. There's a difference between the regime failing and the state collapsing. If it's and it is not clear to me that there is an American strategy for distinguishing between the two. If you get to a point where the Iranian state no longer functions, so that an order given in Tehran has no bearing outside, then I have Pakistan on one border with a military intelligence service that supports radical extremists, and the Taliban in Afghanistan on another border. And at that point, I think it becomes Katie bar the door, which will be bad news indeed for the United States and for the Arab states of the Gulf in particular. It will be America's problem to resolve at that moment.
Would we be here if President Trump, had not withdrawn the U.S. from the nuclear deal with Iran that was back in 2015?
Yes, the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. No, is the short answer. Iran is now much closer to a nuclear weapon than it was in 2018 when the U.S. withdrew, although the Prime Minister of Israel has been saying for 30 years that Iran is 6 months to a year away from a nuclear weapon. But no, absolutely, we would not be here.
Do you feel like there's any hope for peace in the Middle East?
Not the way it's going now. No, I think that we're headed in the wrong direction generally in the Middle East. We have, I think, an administration that has no particular strategy for the Middle East. And I think we are entering a very dangerous period in a dangerous part of the world to begin with.
We know you're very busy. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
A new blood test can detect a protein in the brain often associated with Alzheimer's disease. The test was developed by an Indiana University research team and, as our Donnie Burgess reports, makes early diagnosis of Alzheimer's a possibility.
IU School of Medicine researcher Dr. Jeff Dage and his team led development of the test, which tracks the protein from the brain into the bloodstream. Standard tests for Alzheimer's include cerebrospinal fluid analysis and brain imaging, but those are usually done at the end of life. They can also be expensive and hard to find.
But then some doctors use different labs, some doctors use different tests, and you could get a result from one lab or a result from another lab, and they're different numbers. Then how do you reconcile what they mean? It gets really confusing.
The blood test not only tracks the protein, but creates a more accessible testing option for people concerned about symptoms. The test has been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, which also means test results will be easier to understand.
I say this a lot, it's all about accessibility. So we want to make this test available and accessible to as many people as possible. So FDA clearance really does that.
Dage says the next step in his research is discovering tests for other proteins in the brain.
It's really going to be, I think, really valuable in terms of a diagnostic workup, both for the positives, because then it'll be a more rapid route to potential therapies and treatment, and the negatives, because then you can really focus in on what can we do in terms of reversible causes.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Donnie Burgess.
The Alzheimer's Association says more than 7 million Americans are living with the disease. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Changes to the National SNAP program could mean fewer Hoosiers are eligible for federal food assistance. And Memorial Stadium will have a new football field when IU kicks off the season in August. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Recently, WFIU and WTIU lost a combined $450,000 in state funding. This loss will directly impact the programming you rely on every day. The mission of public media has never been more vital or more vulnerable than right now. We're deeply committed to providing trusted programming to this region, and we're relying on our community now as much as ever. Help us meet this moment by becoming a sustaining member or increasing your monthly gift at WTIU.org/donate. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. We're joined now by Aubrey Wright for more headlines from around the state. Hi, Aubrey.
Hey, Joe. A man acting erratically at Saturday's No King protest of President Donald Trump in Bloomington faces a bail hearing Tuesday. Hyun Jun Kim remains in the Monroe County Jail after being arrested for intimidating protesters with a large stick. Kim also placed a backpack on the ground and gave one protester a key fob, which he said was, quote, the key to the frequency, and told him to run. Indiana University is giving campus leaders next year's budget on Monday with $100 million in cuts from the state and federal government. Although the Board of Trustees passed the budget last Friday, none of the leaders responsible for implementing those cuts have seen it. To prepare, the university is reducing retirement contributions and eliminating unfilled positions. Students and faculty gathered at the Neil Marshall Black Culture Center Thursday to celebrate Juneteenth. The federal holiday marks the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans in the U.S. Along with food, music, crafts, and games, the event featured a Black culture walk to visit Black landmarks on campus.
Folks just want to take a big, deep breath and try to just get rid of all that weight that we have with everything that's going on in the world, and just really celebrate the essence of and the beauty of being Black.
The celebration also served as a way to welcome new students to campus. A musical performance this weekend will bring together groups of musicians to perform on stage together for the first time. As Katie Spack reports, the Band in a Hat concept is uncovering and showcasing local musical talent.
With only 2 months to rehearse, 9 bands will debut at 3rd Street Park Amphitheater Sunday evening. The bands were chosen by organizer M. Beck, who says the event's spontaneity is what makes it so unique.
No one knows what's going to happen, which is really great. And every year I'm so impressed with how just incredible everybody is, because they've only had 2 months to do this thing.
There are 9 bands this year. It's the event's 3rd consecutive year, and the first year the event is funded with a grant from the Bloomington Arts Commission. Beck hopes this experience will further connections in the local music community.
It's kind of secretly also a band incubator project. Ideally, people would stay together, or they would maybe like splinter off with people that they vibed really well with and create a new band or something.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Katie Spack.
The concert is Sunday at 5 p.m. at the 3rd Street Park Amphitheater. Switchyard Park now has a tactile map to help individuals who are blind or who have low vision. The map is next to the pavilion and the Beeline Trail. It includes features such as raised textures, braille, and color contrast to show the park's amenities. Its height and angle also make it accessible for wheelchair users.
For the people with disabilities, accessibility matters, and being able to get to places and to be able to use the services and features that are there. And this is just one way to be able to do it.
The department spent almost $1 million in American Rescue Plan funds to make parks and recreational places more inclusive. The U.S. Supreme Court this week upheld a ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The decision considered whether or not banning gender-affirming care was considered sex-based discrimination, which would violate the 14th Amendment. Indiana is one of the 26 states with a ban on gender-affirming care. Transgender advocates say the ruling takes health care decisions out of the hands of families and providers. And single Americans in their 40s are in their sexual prime, with 93% saying that sexual chemistry isn't optional in a romantic relationship. That's according to new data from IU's Kinsey Institute and the dating company Match. The latest Singles in America study finds most single Gen Xers report being frequently turned on, while nearly half are having sex more than once a month or more.
Particularly people in their 40s, they're saying, I want to have it all. And particularly women in their 40s, we're saying, I want sexual chemistry. I also want a partner I can trust and confide and have an emotional connection with.
The study also finds 2/3 of single Americans report believing in love at first sight, a much higher share than in previous years. Back to you, Joe.
All right, Aubrey, thanks so much. Well, President Donald Trump's Make America Healthy Again Commission continues to change food assistance programs throughout the country. Most recently, Arkansas, Idaho, and Utah amended their SNAP programs to exclude soda and candy from being purchased with benefits. Clayton Baumgarth looked into how Indiana is at the forefront of changes to food assistance.
Community Kitchen in Bloomington's goal is to help individuals gain regular access to an adequate diet. The nonprofit does so with 2 buildings and a food truck that travels around the county. These food programs are designed to help anyone get a meal.
A lot of people don't realize we do a lot for kids, particularly in the summer. During the school year, we do a Backpack Buddies program, and we provide meals for kids after school at like the Boys and Girls Club and the Rise and other places in Bloomington.
During the summer, Community Kitchen serves free lunches to at-risk kids who normally get free meals during the school year, but not in the off months.
We have 2 routes that we go on, going to the 10 different neighborhoods. We're at each spot for 20 to 30 minutes, and the kids just come out and hang out with us and eat a nutritious lunch.
This year, Clower says 30% more kids are being served through the program.
Ultimately, I think that for a lot of families that have had their SNAP benefits and other things that have changed or been affected, that we're starting to see, the results of that, which is more families, more kids that are needing our support in the summer.
Those changes to SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, include increasing work requirements to be eligible for the program and removing the ability to purchase soft drinks or candy using benefits. Indiana was the first state to remove sugary drinks and candy from the state's SNAP program. In a tweet on May 23rd, Governor Mike Braun said Indiana is proud to lead the way in the Make America Healthy Again agenda. And when more states did the same thing in early June, Braun was there with Health Secretary Kennedy and Ag Secretary Rollins.
We spend way too much money on trying to fix bad behavior, and when I was able to give an executive order that says we're not spending government money in Indiana on sugary drinks and candy, what could make more common sense?
Braun has also overseen the cancellation of another program. Sunbucks used to give parents of those in need $120 a month per child to buy groceries during the summer. The Indiana Family and Social Services Administration missed the original program application deadline. It submitted a waiver in March to participate, but didn't receive a response before the Braun administration intervened.
The Sunbucks program was really worked well for urban, suburban, and rural families because it allowed them, instead of having to go to a meal site at a specified time, it allows them the flexibility to make it part of their normal shopping experience, whatever that looks like.
About 660,000 Hoosier children were enrolled in the program last year. Indiana is one of 14 states not participating in the program this year, though it may participate next year.
The Braun administration is saying that they are interested in next summer, but the Braun administration also believes that the Trump administration might do away with the program nationwide. So instead of 36 states participating next year, maybe it wouldn't even be available to those.
Lynch says that because the state wouldn't participate in the $2.8 million Sunbucks program, it may not be willing to pay for the even larger SNAP program. That could come with a $350 million total administrative cost for states if Trump's big, beautiful bill passes as written.
This is something where we're going to have hungry people in Indiana if it passes the way it is.
For the food assistance industry, the potential changes are not only scary by themselves, but they could signal even more changes ahead.
Kind of feel like everything is at risk simply because we don't know what's going to happen or what's next.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
Community Kitchen funds its summer meal program through a combination of USDA assistance and community support. Memorial Stadium is getting a fresh look this summer. The field's synthetic turf will be replaced for the first time since 2016. The new surface promises improved safety, durability, and even sustainability. Maya Garza has the story.
Workers have been busy since IU's graduation last month, tearing out and installing a new synthetic football field at Memorial Stadium. The $1.1 million project will use artificial turf made by Hellas, a Texas-based company best known for outfitting NFL stadiums, such as the Dallas Cowboys, AT&T Stadium, and the Las Vegas Raiders Allegiant Stadium. Along with a fresh new look, the new surface is engineered to reduce injuries.
They put a shock pad underneath the artificial turf that kind of lets it kind of play and feel more like natural grass.
That added shock absorption helps reduce stress on joints, potentially lowering the risk of soft tissue injuries, such as ACL or Achilles tears. IU is the first Big Ten school to use Hellas turf for its football field. Nebraska recently installed the same brand indoors. The old turf isn't going to waste. IU donated sections to the Owen Valley Sports Complex. The rest is being recycled by Hellas.
In some theory, it is unintentionally sustainable, as with the rubber infill and all that is used car tires for the large part. That helps generate that infill, and then pea gravel, organic material in general.
While fans won't see major visual changes, the end zones will now feature updated Hoosier bold lettering. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Maya Garza.
That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.